welcome back to another interview from Another Zero. So today I have Kim and Sandra, and they're going to talk about Shakespeare. They're going to talk about Shakespeare in the summer, Shakespeare in, let's say, college campus, Shakespeare. You guys tell me, but welcome to the Zero. This is your home. Very happy to have you.
Thank you, Alejandra, so much for having us.
Of course. So tell me what's the deal? We've been there's been the season, let's say, or the run of performances of both Romeo and Juliet and bilingual, and Much Ado About Nothing also in English happening, right? Can you tell me, this is the second edition of this festival. Can you tell me how that came about for people that are not familiar?
Hi, I'm Kim Strassburger. I'm very proud to be the artistic director of our second season of the Southwestern Summer Shakespeare Festival. We're having it at Southwestern College. Sandra Ruiz, this lovely person here, has adapted and directed a bilingual adaptation of Romeo y Julieta. And I am directing an all-English production of Much Ado About Nothing. Sandra and I worked together during last season's performance and production of Hamlet, in which Sandra was the amazing Gertrude in our production. And I had the great privilege to direct her. And this year, especially because we wanted to reach out even more to the diverse community of South Bay and Chula Vista, Sandra and I had many meetings at Bully's in Mission Valley, talking about what kind of productions would be good for this second year of the festival. And Sandra came up with Romeo y Julieta.
Mm-hmm. And what was the, let's say, the reasoning, right, behind two things? One, it being Romeo y Julieta, and the other one, it being bilingual.
We're working at Southwestern College, which is primarily, 15 minutes away from the border. And so we wanted to bring Shakespeare to an audience of Southwestern College for the community of Southwestern College. Romeo y Julieta is such a beautiful story, and it's a story that a lot of us already know. And so we don't have closed captions or anything like that. So if you come in and you know Spanish, great. And if you don't know Spanish, well, that's okay, because a lot of us already know Shakespeare. And if you don't know English, that's okay, because half of it is in Spanish. And I feel like a lot of times we come from communities where there's a lot of different languages, and you speak to your family in Spanish at home, and then you go to school and you speak in English. So that's kind of what the world is for our Romeo y Julieta. And I feel like it's a very important place still, because of everything that's going around in the world and in our country, with rights being taken away from kids, trans kids, gay kids, kids of color. So everybody is sort of fighting for a place of their own here in America. And in Romeo y Julieta, all the characters are the young characters are fighting for their own place in the world as well. So that's why we chose Romeo y Julieta, and that's why we decided to make it bilingual.
Mm-hmm. And is it dialogue, English, Spanish? Is it Spanglish, or how does that go?
When the kids talk to each other, it's Spanglish a bit. But mostly the Capuletos are in our world. We created them that they've been in this southwestern border town of Verona since it was Mexico. And so they hold on to their traditions, and so they speak Spanish at home. So Capuleto's family, Julieta's family, speaks Spanish at home. So you'll have mom and dad and the nurse, the nodriza, all speaking Spanish at home. And then when they go out and have, parties, and when they're with their peers, they will speak in English. The Capuletos, amongst their own peers, will speak in Spanish. But then when they start interacting with the Montagues, then you'll hear both Spanish and English. And of course, the Montagues all speak English. Even though, and we have the Montagues as a sort of relatively new family to this Verona town. So they've been there for a while. And even though they know Spanish, they grew up speaking English. So that's their primary language, and that's the world that we've set.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And shout out to Lady Capuleto, right? Valeria Vega.
Yes.
She's birthdaying this week. So yeah, that's cool. And with that, Kim, also, so Hamlet was the only play. It wasn't. So you grew with 2 productions this year.
Actually, no. Last year it was Hamlet and the Comedy of Errors in rep together.
Oh, okay.
And this year we're doing Romeo y Julieta and a comedy, Much Ado About Nothing. So we're kind of following the same pattern.
Oh, awesome. And then why, what's, do you combine students and professional actors? How does that go? How does the casting process go?
We did last year, and what we do this year is that we hire 3 professional actors from the San Diego theater community, Sandra, of whom was one last year. This year in Romeo and Julieta, we have the aforementioned Valeria Vega as Lady Capuleto. We have the fantastic Marcus Rodriguez as Mercutio, and the equally fantastic Denise Lopez as Nodrisa, the nurse. The idea is that we're bringing in professional actors to work with students at Southwestern, but also from farther beyond. We have students from San Diego City College. We even have some high school students from the South Bay area. And it's a way to have I would say more experts work with some of our younger and more emerging future actors, right? So they're in the mix watching how these actors do the work, how they conduct themselves and learning. It's really a unique process, but it's absolutely wonderful, rewarding, and we really see the students growing from working with these professional actors. The actors are pre-cast, so we approach them, the professional actors, with these roles, and then the auditions for the remainder roles in the play are open. So we have a wide range of people come in from the community and the campus as well.
And for both of you, so Shakespeare is either very foreign, very scary, or very scholarly, or very how it's perceived, right, in the non-theater practicing eye audiences. And in this world, current world, I say in my interviews, of the Eras Tour, the Swifties, the Beyoncés, and all these things, and no hate at all. It's just different forms of expression and artistry, obviously, but it's like the eggs in the basket, right? Like most eggs go to a certain basket, and then there's, in theater sometimes, especially with Shakespeare, can become a little bit scary, or people can shy away from it. How do you both feel? And I think it's kind of like a rhetoric, but I do want to talk about it. How do you both feel about, because there's also audiences that love Shakespeare and they're like, leave it as is, give me all my Shakespeare, my formality. But now there's a lot of creativeness, let's say, going around with Shakespeare all across the board, all across the world, for people and new audiences to come in and just experiment it, just to come through the door. So what are your thoughts on the traditional, if traditional is a word here for that, or the book, I don't even know how to phrase it, and now these all new, and not just English, Spanish, there's also, gender bending and all these switches that have come upon for, I want to say, some 10-ish years or so with Shakespeare. Does that work with the community? Does that bring more people through the door? How is that?
Well, if I could just say that one of the reasons why I love Shakespeare so much is that I think over the years we have, as a theater community, have given it this importance, obviously, because the language is so beautiful. But if you really study the history of Shakespeare, it was a sporting event. It was a loud, obnoxious, crazy party when people would go see Shakespeare. It wasn't necessarily just for, highbrow society. It was for the people. That was what they had at that time. And he created words just like rappers create words nowadays. And so that's what I like to bring out when I do Shakespeare. It's just the humanity of the stories is still there. Like, as long as you are, being true to his words, and his words are all poetry. But for instance, like when I was talking to some of my young actors, we would tell them about, hey, listen to Common, Kendrick Lamar, these people who use words in such a poetic, musical way. And that's exactly what Shakespeare did. And so it's not necessarily, I think, this thing that's only for the elite, because it wasn't back there at that time. So in that sense, I like to say that we're keeping it traditional, because at that time it was, the sporting event of a lifetime where everybody would come, not only the rich people, but everyone of all walks of life would come and enjoy Shakespeare. So I love the fact that because the stories are so connected to our humanity, you can take them and put them in any world and they still make sense as long as the actors are telling the story. And I feel like that's what we've done with both of our shows, actually, because Kim's is set in Southwestern College and mine is a bilingual production. But the kids and the professional actors are so passionate about the story that they're telling that I do think it's very traditional, because the words are still there and it's just a different environment and it's a different feel. And I really feel that all of our art needs to evolve with the young people and with the people who are growing up. So, like, for instance, our fight, because Romeo y Julieta has a lot of fights in the show, our fights are really chaotic and almost like the fights that you see on these TikTok videos and these viral videos that are really not very nice, but that's what the kids are seeing nowadays. And the music that we have in Romeo y Julieta is what the kids are listening to nowadays. So I feel that in its sense, it is traditional because the words are still there, and it is still something that we want to bring a mixture of people in, not just the highbrow. And I feel like for those traditionalist Shakespeare people, when you come in and you see it with different eyes, it can give it such a beautiful new way of looking at the story that I think a lot of people love. So
if I could weigh in on this too, I think, and beautifully said, Sandra, beautifully. I think everybody has a lot of perceptions, and I say this with respect, misconceptions about Shakespeare. When you go to the leading theaters in London, or even across the United States, if I may put it this way, the days of pumpkin pants and Elizabethan collars and white people speaking Shakespeare beautifully in rounded tones is gone. We don't do that anymore. Likewise, and this is something that I notice the way that specifically people in America are exposed to Shakespeare. Oftentimes, Shakespeare's, people's first experience is sitting at a desk under fluorescent lighting, reading it from a textbook, with a teacher asking some random student to read words aloud that they have no idea what they're saying. 9 times out of 10, these poor students are not actors, so they're reading it in a flat monotone. The analogy I like to use is that it's like going to Whole Foods, buying a AAA prime filet mignon, taking it home and sticking it in the microwave for 10 minutes. That's not the way you treat a piece of steak. Forgive the analogy, but
My husband would love this. Yes.
That's not the way Shakespeare is intended. I'm not denying that there is an academic value to Shakespeare, but Shakespeare was writing, as Sandra said, for a live audience. And going to Shakespeare, going to the Globe, to the theaters in the old days was much more akin to going to a ball game. It was loud, it was raucous, it was full of energy. But I think here in the US especially, we're often not exposed to Shakespeare until, for many people, 9th grade, right? And they're often exposed to it the way that I just mentioned. Students in the UK are exposed to Shakespeare at a much earlier age, right? In what is equivalent to us of 5th grade. But it's taught, now it's part of their heritage, but it's also taught, and I think in a much more lively manner. To the second point that you raised about not understanding the language, here's what I would say in counter to that. Yeah, Shakespeare, you have to understand that the language has changed a bit, but every time you you download a new song, do you understand every single word your first time that the performer is saying? Right?
Yeah.
You
No.
listen to a rap song, do you get every single word that they're saying? Even to the Swifties out there, the first time you heard, a song on her album, did you understand perfectly every lyric and every mention and every word that she sang? No. Shakespeare is universal, and he's fun and he's tragic. And I think it's part of our duty as directors and people trying to lead the way in Shakespeare to keep it alive for the next generation, to not let it molder in the land of pumpkin pants and arch British accents. We just don't do that anymore. And nor is it solely the white person's venue anymore. It has to be diverse. We have to reach out to new audiences. This is my long answer, but I will tell you, and I think, Sandra, I don't know if I shared this with you, but on opening night for Romeo y Julieta, to see people laughing and enjoying Shakespeare in Spanish, it made me tear up. Because what do we do when we create theater? We're constantly looking for new audiences, right? And to see a new segment, what I'm assuming is a new segment, enjoying Shakespeare, following along, laughing, crying, engaged, I think we're on the right path. Yeah. And that was beautiful for me. And I felt that energy of the theater there, that it told me that we're going in the right direction with this. So that's a long answer to a short question.
I mean, it's a great answer. And I love, having you both, and also to, compliment this whole view that, it goes on and on and on and on. We were talking about reviews the other day, and it's something that will go on and on and on, and it always will be different because we are human. And each person is its own, and the reaction and the, all of it. So it's great. Yes, plug away. We're going until August 4th, correct?
Correct. So Southwestern College, swctheater.com. That's swctheatre.com.
All right.
Saturday the 27th, we have Romeo y Julieta at 7 p.m. Sunday, we have a matinee of Romeo y Julieta at 2 p.m. And then our last weekend, Friday, August 2nd, we have Romeo y Julieta at 7 p.m. Saturday, August 3rd, we have Romeo y Julieta at 2 p.m. And then the remaining shows, the evening show on August 3rd is Much Ado at 7. And then we close out the festival on Sunday, August 4th with a back-to-back production of Much Ado, one at 2 p.m. and one at 7 p.m. And then that is the end of the festival.
Yay. Good. Yes. What are the price ranges?
$10.
$10. You can't beat that, folks.
It's $10. Southwestern College and Sweetwater Union students are in for free. We really want to build this up. So there's nice air conditioning.
A beautiful campus.
It's a beautiful
free parking.
Free parking. There's a lot of parking.
Less
common now in the county, right?
Come laugh. Come laugh during Much Ado About Nothing. Come cry during Romeo y Julieta. See something that we love and we hope that you all love who are watching.
Perfect. Support the performing arts. Before we leave, I always ask our guests, another zero. It says you start from zero, and here we just don't start from zero. We start from another zero, because after, you learn your tools, getting back up or restarting. You can't just start from zero. It has to be from another zero. So we ask our guests what their other zero or zeros have been. It can be anything, moving, a career change, a new play, a bilingual Shakespeare, like different zeros that have impacted you professionally, personally, that you can share with our audience.
Okay, so I'll do mine. It was a date in Washington, D.C. in 1994. I hated Shakespeare. God, if I may say, is laughing her butt off right now at me because I hated Shakespeare. I thought it was boring because I learned it the way that I described it a few minutes earlier, right? And I went on a date to see a production at the Shakespeare Theater in Washington, D.C. It was of Henry IV. I didn't really want to go, but I wanted to impress this guy. And it was my Saul on the road to Damascus moment. I was struck by lightning. And I am always grateful for that production and being able to see the way I felt that Shakespeare needs to be performed, vital, alive, fun. So
that's an amazing zero. Sandra?
I've always loved Shakespeare just simply because I've always felt it was so imaginative when it was first taught to me in college. I don't really remember it in high school. Like I remember sitting there reading plays, but it didn't really, like it sort of went over my head. But my Shakespeare teacher in college, Jim Winker, was just the most passionate human being ever. And he taught us, just how human these stories are. So ever since then, I've actually loved Shakespeare. And my zero moment, I guess, was when I was like, you know what? These stories have been around forever and they're still beautiful. But the thing that we need most right now is to inspire people to write our own stories. So I actually have written a play, and it's going to be performed at the Latinx Play Festival in La Jolla Playhouse as the reading and Latinx Play Festival. But I have a Shakespeare candle that I always light when I write because I want his sort of storytelling inspiration for myself as well. So that's my zero moment.
Wow, I love it. I love it. We need to come back. Yeah, we need to come back and then talk about Emilia. We'll leave it for another day because I really want to talk to you both about it. But thank you for being here. So everybody, listen up and pay attention that there still is time running out, but there still are opportunities to go and see Much Ado and Romeo y Julieta at Southwestern College. So we have everything up here for you to read and see and go and everything. So don't miss out on these great opportunities. Thank you so much, Kim and Sandra, for being here, for making the time. And remember that here, we just don't start from zero. We start from another zero. So catch you on the next one.
Thanks, Alejandra. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.